Hello guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. Today we're going to be going over another one of the Spiritborn uniques. This one is called the Scorn of the Earth. Scorn of the Earth is a pair of boots that's designed around soar, and it's actually kind of interesting. The unique effect is a little lackluster, but that's really because the damage on soar is a little lackluster. But the boots themselves are actually kind of insane, and as we go over them, I think you'll notice that. So first off, the boots themselves have two implicits, where most boots only have one implicit. You can either have the implicit that gives you maximum evade charges, or you can have the implicit that gives you the attacks reduce evades cooldowns, and they're both actually kind of good mods, depending on what you need. For the Spiritborn, I think you really kind of just want the attack evades cooldown reduction, because the Spiritborn can enhance the number of charges that they have through the passive known as acceleration. So you can get additional evade charges through acceleration. So you don't necessarily need the 3 evade charges on the boots, but it's kind of nice to get evade charges and also the attacks reduce evade cooldown on one pair of one pair of boots, which is pretty cool. The other thing is that it also has movement speed bonus, a very large amount. As you can see, mine is currently 43.7, but that's because I have it masterworked. And of course, movement speed is also going to feed into the Brilliance passive, which is going to give you a multiplier depending on your movement speed bonus, which is pretty nice. Then you also get this crazy buff. It's just sword deals up to 316.3% enhanced damage based on the distance that you travel with it. So I'm assuming that you would use the ability at an extreme range to get the largest effect from it. So you would want to travel, like all the way from, say, where you are to the corner of the screen, and that would probably be the maximum bonus. I'm not entirely sure, to be perfectly honest, what the maximum bonus would be. But let's go ahead and pull soar on the bar here real quick. So that we can play around with it. So if you were wearing these boots, as an example, and you had the training dummy like at the far edge of the screen here, and you soar to the target, you're going to probably get the maximum bonus that way. Now, other than that, we also have the soar grants barrier, or maximum life as barrier, so up to 23% maximum life as barrier, and this is one you probably want to get with a greater affix, specifically because it's going to give you a lot more barrier every single time you use it. It's only 1.5 seconds, though. Which, unfortunately, a barrier for 1.5 seconds isn't as useful as you would think, because it's going to be gone relatively quickly. It could potentially prevent you from getting like poison damage or things like that. I mean, like, for instance, when you teleport into a pack, it's going to absorb at least a little bit of the damage when you teleport into the pack, which is not bad. It also gives you a bonus to the soar ability itself, which if you look at soar on the tree, when you put points into soar, and let's just pull them out of something else for the moment. When you put points into soar, you'll notice that the damage increases. So that's really the only thing that you're getting out of it. The cooldown doesn't go down with the bonus points, and it's just the damage increase. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the bonus. But if you're trying to use it specifically for damage output, that's a whole other thing. The special effect on the boots is your evade is now soar, which means that now that we have the boots on, our evade turns into a soar ability, which means that if we're using the boots, we can now spam evade in that particular way. So we can just simply spam the evade key over and over and over again. And let's go ahead and reset this, since we do have the evade reduce cooldown, or attacks reduces our evade's cooldown. So as long as we're spamming our ability, we're going to be able to reduce the cooldown of our evades. We should be able to anyway. Sometimes this stuff doesn't work unless you like leave and come back in. Let's leave and come back in. Especially when you're swapping pieces of equipment. There's problems with like snapshotting the wrong things on occasion, which usually requires you to like leave and rejoin. And it should be reducing by 0.5 seconds each time, which it does not seem to be doing at all. Yeah, I'm not seeing any noticeable increase in the speed at which it's restoring my charges. That's rather unfortunate. Um, However, this does allow you to utilize, obviously, your soar as your evasion. So instead of just simply casting it, you can also simply use the spacebar, and it's going to cast the soar every single time you press the evasion button, which is definitely very, very nice. And let's see if we can see it from this perspective. 2, 3. So I guess it is reducing it. It's just a rather large amount per point because we're going to need cooldown reduction for this. Probably Shaco, maybe some other items to reduce the cooldown from 12 seconds to something a little bit more manageable. You could also potentially use Prodigy's Tempo here, which Prodigy's Tempo is going to allow you to reset the cooldown faster. Let me see if I can show you how this would work. So as you can see here, you can clearly see that the evade cooldown is resetting a hell of a lot faster now, and I can start spamming it. I'm going to go ahead and spam all of them so that I'm out completely. And you can see the 11 seconds go down relatively quickly while using Prodigy's Tempo in combination with the boots. So it basically allows you to spam a large number of these attacks. You can have your soar on your bar as well as your evasions going down at the same time as well. So you can get both cooldowns and have a relatively fast-paced soar. The other effect of this is that soar deals 50% times increased damage. Now, soar doesn't really have good damage. I've tried to do a build around soar specifically, and soar just doesn't really have the damage that a lot of the other abilities have. It does make you unstoppable, or it can also make all the enemies vulnerable around you by giving you the little donut cloud. And, I mean, I don't really know how to explain it. Like, the damage of the ability itself isn't amazing. There is an aspect that you can use with this, which is kind of neat. And I thought at first that it would be a good way to get damage from soar and basically make an entire build around it. But the truth of the matter is it didn't really work out the way that I had thought. This is the aspect for Vortex, which makes it so that soar casts Vortex on its landing and basically deals an additional 45 times damage. If you utilize this aspect with soar, it does in fact use Vortex every single time you use soar, even if you're using the evasion version, which means that you get a free cast of Vortex every single time you soar. The problem with this is that, number one, soar has kind of a long animation time, which does cause some problems with like dishing out the Vortex. And as well, the Vortex that comes from soar doesn't take into account this measured Vortex multiplier. So there is a multiplier for Vortex that says while you have an active barrier, your Vortex does 300 times additional damage and knocks down enemies for 3 seconds. This one does not apply to the soar Vortex for some reason or another, which means that you basically just don't even get a large amount of damage out of it. I played around with it for some time, and I tried to see if I could get as much damage as I could out of soar, and it just didn't really seem to be effective for that purpose. So the 50 times multiplier that's on the boots just doesn't really seem to give you much of anything in terms of damage. If you're using these boots, you're using them so that you can use your evade as soar. Which is definitely not bad. You can also utilize these to have permanent uptime on vulnerability, utilizing the little vulnerable donut, which basically makes it so that all monsters within range are currently made vulnerable, which is actually pretty good. And let's talk about that for a second as well, because that's actually a kind of an interesting mechanic.
Mr. Goody Two Shoes, Mr. Goody Two Shoes. Ginger Evil Mentor here. Why bother farming when you can go to MMOEXP.com and simply purchase your items in gold? GGM would have you farm the items. What a pathetic being. Use code GEM Ginger Evil Mentor for 6% off your entire purchase. And don't tell Ginger Gaming Mentor that I was here.
So one of the key passives on the Spiritborn is Vital Strikes. Vital Strikes is a 45% times increased damage multiplier to vulnerable enemies, but one of the problems with this is that it also removes the vulnerable effect whenever you touch the target. However, if you were to utilize these boots, which allow you to basically spam soar at any time that you would like to, in combination with, of course, this aspect, which is the replenishing soar, which gives you Soar's cloud remains around you for 4 seconds after landing and continues to make enemies vulnerable for the entire duration. Which basically means that when you have Soar active, the monster will always be vulnerable, and that even though you are removing the vulnerable status from the monster, it will automatically reapply the vulnerable status as soon as you take it away. So having your permanent uptime on your vulnerability, which would allow you to get the most out of this particular key passive if you wanted to go that particular direction. So there's a lot of potential ways that you could utilize this, including, and not limited to, the fact that Soar is a mobility skill, which is another aspect that we could potentially explore. So mobility skills can be used for a couple different things within Diablo 4. On the Spiritborn, you can use them to cast the Storm Feathers. So this is a whole nother aspect when it comes to the Storm Feathers. There is the casting a focus skill recalls all nearby Storm Feathers. Now this is not this is a focus skill, so it does in fact work for that because it's Soar focus, and you get all the recall every single time you use Soar. You can also use the aspect of Falling Feathers, which is moving with a mobility skill or an evade, spawns Storm Feathers behind you. So in this particular case, because of course you're using the ability, it's a mobility ability, and you can also evade with it because you're using the Soar Boots, you're going to be getting both of those things. So you're going to get the Falling Feathers and the Recalling Feathers every single time you use Soar. And then on top of that, you can also use the aspect of Empowered Feathers, which gives you a mobility cooldown reduction for every Storm Feather that you pick up, which, again, Soar is a mobility skill, so it's going to help the cooldown reduction of the ability as well. So all three of these Storm Feather abilities, the aspect of Falling Feathers, the aspect of Recalling Feathers, and the aspect of Empowered Feathers, interact with the way that Soar works, and the one that is specifically designed around evasion, so the aspect of Falling Feathers, which is also linked to evading, also works with the Soar Boots, because the Soar, your evade becomes a Soar as long as you're wearing them. So you're essentially just spamming Soar, which is going to cause all the feathers to constantly happen, which is a very powerful effect. And you can also potentially use the Eagle Spirit Hole bonus. So the Eagle Spirit Hole bonus is casting an Eagle skill, grants 4 seconds of Storm Feathers, movement speed bonus, and when you evade, you fling up to 8 Storm Feathers in every direction, right? So every time that you evade with the Soar ability, you're also going to get the Storm Feathers popping out. So you're going to have essentially all of the Storm Feathers coming out in all directions at all time just by spamming Soar. Now, you're not really going to be focusing on the damage part of it, but you're going to be focusing on the spamming of your evade and the spamming of the Soar ability to cause the feathers to spawn, and also to cause the, obviously, the recalling of the feathers, and also to reduce the cooldown of the mobility skill, and yada, yada, yada. It's not exactly the best way to do it, though. And my personal opinion on this is that it's slow. It's really the main problem with it. And let me kind of like show you what I mean by this. The animation is actually really slow with this particular ability, which does kind of like limit the way that it works. So let's get some resets here, and I'm just gonna like pull this back up. Cooldowns, cooldowns, lots and lots of cooldowns, cooldowns, cooldowns. Alright, that's plenty enough. Let's get multiple dummies. Alright, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how quickly I can spam Soar. So we're going to use the ability itself, then we're going to evade, 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 and then I'm out. But you can see that there's a lag time between like when you can use it, because you got to go up and then you got to come back down, and then you can activate it, and then you got to go up and then you got to come back down, and then you got to activate it. So it's not exactly as fast as some other abilities that you could potentially be using. And you might be asking, well, what other mobility ability could you potentially be using that is faster than Soar? Well, from my experience, there is an interesting ability that could potentially trump it, although it doesn't function with the evade portion, which is unfortunate, but it does function with the mobility portion, which is Rushing Claw. So Rushing Claw, I think, has a much faster activation period as well as a much easier time spamming the feathers. The only downside is that you can't really use the Eagle Spirit Hole bonus because the Eagle Spirit Hole bonus is specific to evasion, whereas the aspects are specific to like mobility skills and focus skills and so forth and so on. So in this particular case, let's go take a look at a mobility skill like Rushing Claw that you could potentially spam even faster. Now, of course, you could always combine the two together, which is something that is definitely a possibility because this one is not a focus skill, and you're still going to need a focus skill to help recall the feathers. In this particular case, I would be using Toxic Skin because Toxic Skin functions very well as a focus skill alongside of Jaguar skill, the Jaguar Rushing Claw. But just to give you an idea of how quickly you could potentially be summoning the feathers with Rushing Claw versus the other, let's take a look at it. So multiple training dummies. And here we go. As you can clearly see, like, and this is even not even with a large amount of increased attack speed. If I add more increased attack speed into this build, it goes much faster. But you can clearly see that I'm able to attack a lot quicker than Soar is capable of doing and cover more distance, essentially, with this than Soar probably can. Because there's too much of an activation window in the way that Soar works because you've got to go up and then come back down. Whereas all I have to do with this particular ability is just pew, and I'm there. And it's immediate. So like you're basically just casting it over and over and over again. And you could, of course, combine Soar with it, which wouldn't exactly be a terrible idea, because that would give you the ability to spam a focus skill as well. It's all very interesting when you think about it. One of the major problems that I have with this particular item is the same problem that I have with, like, everything on the Spiritborn, which is aspect shortage. There's really a huge problem on the Spiritborn with so many amazing aspects and just not a lot of space to put them. First off, the Spiritborn has usually a unique item in their main hand. They also generally are using like at least one unique ring, and sometimes they're even using like a unique armor like Shroud of False Death or Jocelyn's Shell. And a lot of the times they're also using a unique helmet like Helmet of Ebiwaka, Loyalty's Mantle, Shaco, Andariel's Visage, Air of Perdition, etc. And so it really restricts the overall number of aspects that you have available on your character. More often than not, I end up using Duelist on a pair of boots because Duelist gives me +4 to my maximum ferocity stacks and synergizes very well with the Mystic Circle Jaguar. And the biggest issue with that is that, like, I like the boots, I like what they do, but I have so few aspects on this character. Do I want to give up the aspects that I'm running for these boots? And I mean, the answer with this particular character is no, I don't. I don't want to give up my duelist aspect for the ability to spam soar. Maybe on some other characters or a character specifically designed around this item, like for instance a character designed around, you know, like evasion feathers, and, you know, like storm feather potency and things like that to get my feathers up. But I probably wouldn't use this to build an actual character around soar. I've actually already done it, by the way. And it was okay-ish. Like, it was like Torment 3 capable. Not really Torment 4 capable. Like, it was okay at Torment 4. Like, it could kill things, but it took some time. And it was really just because the damage output of Soar itself just isn't really that amazing. Now, if you're using Soar as a mechanism to go to something else, like the Storm Feathers, it works decently. Now, where can you potentially farm these? If you go to our the website at Diablo4.life and you go to Tools, Target Farming Uniques, and you go down to Spiritborn, Scorn of the Earth, you'll see that they drop from Beast in the Ice. So you can farm these at Beast in the Ice along with your Fists of Fate. And I think, isn't it Harmony of Ebiwaka? Yeah, and your Harmony of Ebiwaka also drops there. So some pretty good drops at beasts in the ice anyway, so you can pick yourself up a nice pair of these. If you're looking for greater affixes on these, I would highly recommend probably the movement speed along with the soar grants barrier, and maybe the soar deals more damage. That one's kind of like meh, as well as the plus soar ranks. Both of those are kind of meh. The soar ranks don't give you any cooldown reduction on soar, which is unfortunate. They only give damage, and the soar deals more damage again is just feeding into that entire thing. It's giving you more damage when you cast soar, but I think it would be better if it was like you get more damage based on how far you travel with soar, not soar deals more damage based on how far you travel. Like they could switch it up a little bit and turn it into like just a damage buff that you get when you travel with soar, as opposed to a damage buff to soar. Or maybe, like including, and this is for the developers, but like including something like this, like the measured vortex in the soar ability to turn it into a damage ability. Because measured vortex actually does really good damage if you're spamming it specifically, but not soar, because soar doesn't have any way to increase its damage other than like skill ranks, which is unfortunate. I think that's pretty much it for this particular item. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me. I actually forgot to read the flavor text. Sky spirits weave the winds, thunder is their laughter, and auroras their crowns. Those they bless learn to scorn the earth from above. It is but a distant memory. Lintel the 567, the seventh. Anyway, as always, thanks for watching, guys and gals. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button. And as always, keep watching.